I've been here for an hour, so I'd like to welcome you to our Cache County Council of Governments, our COG meeting for today, January 27th. I'll go ahead and begin. I'd like to welcome Mayor Blake Wright, the new mayor of River Heights, replacing Jason. So let's go ahead and get started with introductions. Megan, you want to start?
Megan Isaac minutes.
David Zoe, Cache County.
Larry Jacobson, Nibley. Mike Benson, Newton.
David Winnebago.
David Scher, Millville.
Ed Buse, Mendon.
Stephanie Miller, Byron. Holly Baines, Logan.
Blake Wright, River Heights.
Chris Monson, Smithfield.
Jeff Hall, Lewiston.
Kathleen Alder, Providence.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. You were behind. So what?
Craig Hidalgo, Clarkston.
Jesse Mock, Cache County, staff to the COG.
Jeff Gilbert, CMPO, staff to the COG.
Okay. Next item is to approve our agenda for this evening. Oh, I do have one. Larry,
Yeah, Larry Johnson, Paradise.
Ryan's on there.
Ryan, is?
Ryan Snow. He's a city manager.
Ryan, unmute and introduce yourself.
Looks like his audio's off.
Okay, it looks like Ryan Snow for Providence.
I'm here.
Okay, we can hear you now. No. No, we don't. Okay, so next on our agenda, I'd like we need to approve the agenda unless there's some adjustments to it.
David Wood.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the agenda stands approved. Next is to discuss and approve the December 2nd meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on them?
I make a motion that we approve the December 2nd, 2024 minutes.
I'll second.
Yeah, have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Paul? Okay. The December 2nd, 2024 meeting minutes have been approved. Next, I would invite Mayor Daines to give us a little bit of a spiel on the Main Street underpass.
It is going to affect your traffic, already is. I've asked Sam Ott to give us a brief update, just so you kind of know what's coming.
Correct. Mayor Daines, we put this on the agenda, this is not a COG funded project, but it is impactful to all of our communities. So we thought we'd just give you a heads up as you start getting questions this summer, especially Providence, River Heights, it's right adjacent to your cities. UDOT is going in partnership with Logan, is installing an underpass for pedestrians at the Logan River. So like the Riverwoods Hotels, the north side of the river. As you can imagine, this will be hugely impactful to Main Street traffic. UDOT is planning to allow, the contractor will have to maintain two lanes of travel, one in each direction during the daylight hours. And then during the night, the contractor will be allowed to close Main Street completely for up to 60 days. So the schedule will be up to the contractor to decide. We're anticipating that it will bid in the next couple of weeks. And we're anticipating that the contractor could be ready to start as early as May. And they have to be done by October for the road work. Once they start, they have about 60 days to do the work on Main Street. And like I said, during the daylight hours, during rush hour, they can have everything but two lanes closed, one in each direction. During the night, it'll be options to be fully closed.
So far, it's been utility relocation.
Yes, so right now, yeah, they're working out there right now. What they're doing right now is relocating CenturyLink fiber lines. That work will be done by the end of February, so that kind of meander will be there till the end of February. The official detour for this road work will be 10th West. However, we anticipate First East and First West will have a lot of traffic on them. So we're asking for patience from our residents and patience from the valley as this project gets installed. Yeah, like I say, we have a PI team, a public involvement team, hired for this. So we'll include, there'll be signups. If you'd like to get information, up to date weekly information, you can. And we'll especially include, River Heights and Providence, city officials, so you're aware of it as well. But we just want to give you a heads up. If you have any questions, please let us know, but be ready for a busy Main Street this summer. Yeah.
Dan, was there originally a plan to just tunnel under without closing?
No, with this one, there was two options on how to build it. One was pour the concrete, and that would have taken 3 to 4 times as long as this. They're doing precast sections, so they'll come in and drop preformed sections of the, it's about 14 feet tall inside, so it's quite large. So tunneling it was kind of thrown out right at the beginning just because of the impact to the bridge right next to it, the foundation of that bridge. They're really worried about that. So,
Thanks.
Any other questions on this? Mayor Alder wanted to share an update on
1700 South in Providence will basically be closed between now and June. It'll be open sporadically once in a while, but we're putting in a lift station there. And so we've got to dig it in. So for those of you that have citizens that travel that road extensively, you'll need to let them know. Tonight, we closed it this morning, and tonight I came along right there by Walmart and turned at that light. It was solid traffic. They were turning down 1700 South, but they were diverted through Blackhawk. So anyway, just so you know that that's going to be closed. They'll have to go down by Walmart.
sounds like detour season starting early this year.
They'll all be great when they're finished. Yes.
Okay, any other questions on these updates, traffic updates? I appreciate Polly volunteering to do this. I think it's important as a COG. We understand what's going on in the valley, very important. So we'll keep doing this as we go along. Next on our list is update mayor and staff contact information. As most of you are aware, we have to go, all municipalities and stuff have to be on .gov by, I believe it's July or June of this year.
I don't know.
At first, it was gonna be by January, but I think it's moved now. To May or June is the deadline now, that it's gotta be on .gov. So what we're asking for is,
I'll be sending out an email just to everybody, to all the mayors, just kind of to make sure we have your contact information and then those within your city staff as well. If there's people that you want to make sure are getting these emails or getting these invites, we want to make sure we're getting those and including those. Again, amongst mayors, we've had some that we've had personal emails, we've had these, so just, hey, we want to make sure we have the right emails so that when we're sending stuff out, we're getting the correct people, the correct information, and have them in with the right emails. So you'll probably see that sometime this week. And if you get it or you have questions or something, feel free to call me or reach out. We just want to make sure we have that correct information.
a lot of us have already changed over. So
Yeah, a lot of people have been good at, sometimes I send you emails and I get your reply or someone reached out, say, hey, here's my new email, please do this, but we just want to make sure that that database is staying up to date on our side, so. That one's simple.
any other questions on that?
Can I make one other comment before?
Yeah.
The other one is just, again, we sent out contracts for the projects that were just awarded. We've seen some of those back, but if you haven't seen, if you were awarded and you haven't seen your contract, please reach out. You should receive one by mail and a hard copy, and then by email as well. So I've got some of those back and some are still floating out there. So just something to be aware of on that front, so.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and continue on. Just go ahead, discussion, change to local transportation money.
Yeah, last time we discussed a number of pretty minor changes through the policy manual. They were kind of just aligning with how things played out last year and some just corrections. And as we went through the big rewrite last year, there was just a few loose ends that were left. There were, last time we kind of started or raised a couple issues that we were looking for direction on before we go and make changes to the policy manual. One of those was if we continue to allow chip and seals in the rural areas, or if there's some regulation on some standards for the rural projects. And then when we changed from requiring 90% design and moved that back to that 30% of the design standards that are in the manual, engineering only funding went away. So it's pretty much you come in for a project, you meet that minimum standard, and then once you're guaranteed, then you have that money for your engineering. So part of it is, before we spent time trying to rewrite the manual, some general direction from this board of, again, those two topics, is the rural set aside, is there restrictions on that? And is there a desire to see an engineering only option for applications for funding?
Yeah, we've been talking pretty extensively in our executive meeting. We talked pretty extensively about the rural set aside and what we want to allow that to go towards. So I'd like to open the floor to have a discussion on that. We talked about how we deal with the chip and seal, new roads, versus just chip and seal maintenance type programs. Personally, I've looked at it and said, okay, so we're constantly doing chip and seal for a city or a municipality. That should be covered really under their own maintenance programs. But that is not necessarily true in all cases. So what we want to get from the COG is, what would you like to see as far as chip and seal? Just allow us been going, or we've been doing it, or set some criteria to what we're going to allow in that area.
Tell us what an exception was.
What do you do?
Well, you said
For example,
it should be the same for everyone, except that there are some exceptions. What are those exceptions?
it should be the same for everyone, and the exception would be if a municipality is constantly coming to the board and saying, I want chip and seal year after year after year. Are they using this as a maintenance program? Or is it helping really, is it increasing the flow of traffic and stuff like that? So what we're trying to do is say, we don't want to be a maintenance program for anybody. What we do want to do is help build roads, increase the flow of traffic.
But
Go ahead. Yes,
I guess I feel like if you don't have a maintenance program on those roads, they can't afford to fix their roads, then they're just beating the purpose. And they have to do chip and seal to keep those roads in good shape.
we all
And keep the
receive,
traffic flow.
tax money for taking care of our roads.
But some of us receive money on those.
That's true.
And so
And that's a good point.
I really feel that we should keep it the same, because maybe they don't need their budget. But that is something that is, if they don't do it, it's detrimental to the roads that do carry the people that have their now.
True.
Do you receive different amounts per mile? Or do we say receive the same amount per mile of Class C road fund?
That you get the same amount per mile. right?
Same formulas apply.
Same
Okay,
formula.
well,
Yeah, it's the
I
same.
just, when she said we get different but we get the same amount of money based on the roads we have.
Yes.
Yeah,
Talking about-
it's based on how many miles are paved versus how many miles are dirt, and then that goes through an equation. And then when I was looking at it earlier today, there's a little bit of adjustment based on populations and a few things that run that equation that generates how much. I mean, when I was on the state tax commission today, it's like every 2 months is how theirs is tracked, that those funds are pushed out to those cities.
When I'm only been a mayor 4 years, I was in shock that we allowed chip and seal. I guess I think that that's something that, yes, it's tough for us to justify spending $96,000 a year on chip and seal, but the fact is, if we don't, our roads aren't gonna be maintained, and I guess we wouldn't think of coming to the COG for just maintenance, and that's how we do it. So I would actually be in favor of taking it out.
So just for background, we've received both kind of applications from the rural areas. We've received some that are just maintenance chip seal, and then we've received some that are full depth reconstruct, shoulder widening, intersection reworks, kind of those kind of things, which there seems to be a big need for in the rural areas as well. And that's the question, do you want to just focus on those type of projects that have at least some of the operational capacity connection to them versus just surface maintenance?
And then with that, even though they approved that, we've encouraged those same individuals to apply a chip and seal to that next year to make sure it's strengthened and is the way it needs to be to go continue on. And we've allowed that. Mayor Herrick.
Well, I would say some of those major roads that go through those small towns that are traveled heavy. I think that's a different story than doing in-town sections. You have a big section of road that's traveled heavily. And you probably live as rural as anybody, and you understand that. Do you see a need for that more than just regular maintenance in town?
For my municipality, we've never applied for a chip and seal grant. We take care of it ourselves.
Yeah, so like,
Maybe we
maybe
have a plan.
we'd be the same as you. Our major throughput is a state road.
Yeah.
So you don't worry about.
Yeah, so, so
And we're all west of that in Clarkston. So we have to maintain our roads, and that's what I do at the tax company, is I maintain them.
And yet, I agree with his point. One of our major roads is a Lewiston City owned road. So great point. We just have to chip seal it more often. But there again, we have to come to the COG for it, but maybe we should be.
so really, most of the money's unless, like a town like Newton, unless we span, we already have all our roads in. We'll never expect any money unless we widen them.
Or reconstruct intersections
reconstruct.
or there might be a need at some point to do a full depth reconstruct. And that would be the case where you could come to the call.
Because I know that, as far as I know, in the history of Newton, we've only got one COG structure. That's true, if I remember.
I think that's true. There was the intersection realignment that was on the north end, and then I know you came in for another reconstruct there in Newton 2 years ago, but I don't think that one was funded.
It wasn't. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it just seems like it's a waste of time for a small town like us unless we have a new road.
And there's still the rural set aside, so that. would
That wouldn't
still
go
be there.
away.
That wouldn't go away. It's just
Yeah,
how in the rural areas do you spend it?
we're not saying get rid of that at all.
But if we don't do as many chip and seals, perhaps we could send the road.
Mayor, what did you have a comment?
Yeah, as far as the rural areas, they, like for our little town, a lot of our roads, we do a chip and seal and fog, but then some of them we do a construction on with it now, but if we had to just, if that was just completely out, I don't know how we get some from the state, but as much as these roads cost now, it's just unbelievable, but how you can come there.
Maybe just
We've done some of both, some reconstruction, some chip and seal. Just from what I've seen over the last few years, I mean, there have been some times that some of the rural projects have not been funded, but most of the time they are, generally speaking. I can think of the big one at Richmond that might have knocked us out a few, but most of the time, the rural set aside takes care of things for us, and that includes some of the chip and seal, and as Mayor Wood said, we do get some funding, but a lot of times with the cost of everything, that's 2 blocks maybe. When 2 miles might have needed that, or 1 mile needed done, and so it has been a help. I can understand both sides of it, but I don't think that it's been necessarily abused up to this point. So I don't know that it needs a change right now. I could accept it both ways.
Just one more thing. I don't think we've ever applied for chip and seal.
Some have and some
I
haven't.
don't believe we have.
Just some, we're not necessarily looking for a motion, but just some direction. If the call's like, hey, we're fine with how it is, we don't want to go in and start rewriting the manual and trace all those through to show up and be like, we don't like it, and be like, okay, undo that. But if it's like, hey, there's support in that direction, then we can take the time to go back and rewrite and put some proposal in there. So we're just looking maybe not to a change, but just a direction of move this way or don't.
maybe just
So I would suggest until we see an abusive pattern or that it's costing things, why make a change to make a change?
all agree? Okay, there's your answer.
Okay, we'll consider that one off the books.
Okay.
The other one would be the engineering only requests. So again, there was just kind of a year that we opened it for those, and there was one or two, just a very few that got funded, but then when we moved to the transition and changed the design requirements and brought those down, that came out. And just is there a desire to have that in there, or is everyone content with how it is until we see an issue And then at that point, look at it.
Mayor Wood,
Is there a limit on that engineering or? we just-
At this point. Yeah, I'd have to, I'm trying to think back if there was when it was in the code. Again, at this point, there's nothing in the code, so, and there's no limit, so in the sense that's. Yeah, there's an engineering standard that needs to be met to apply for funds, but then if you get funded, you can be reimbursed for the engineering that you've spent to get to that point. And the engineering costs to get to your project, so it's that cost to get to that 30-ish level.
Yes.
Mayor,
And I think the 30 is good. Part of the problem before was you had to have 90% down, you just couldn't afford it. 30% is a lot more realistic to do it. And so I think that's part of the reason that got funded, that they opened that up, but now 30% is not much bad.
At the time we okayed it, we all thought it was okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we've only really had a few engineering related projects.
Yes.
I think it's preferred to go back to not having engineering.
So again, at this point, that will pay for it if you're awarded, but there's not just a straight coming for it, so.
but Executive Zuck,
We've gone back and forth on this over the years. I've been involved with COG for close to 15 years, and I've seen us go back and forth on this issue. One concern is that if we're gonna pay for engineering, we're basically signing up to pay for the project, and that doesn't necessarily change how we're gonna vote on it, but it's a consideration because it would be a waste for us to pay for engineering and not pay for the project. So we're essentially giving people a pre-approval when we do that. Another factor that we've discussed over the years with this is some organizations like the county, Golden City, some of the bigger cities have in-house engineers, and it's a little easier. I know a lot of times we still might hire somebody outside to do this, but we could, if we needed to, do more of the engineering in-house. The smaller towns, they don't have that. They have to contract out to do that. And that makes it really hard for them to do that part. So, those are just a couple of thoughts I have that we should consider.
Mayor Jacobson.
Yeah, Holly, help me remember, I think there was a year, my first year here, that they were all engineering projects except one. So we have had heavy on engineering proposals in the past. It's calmed down, and I think
Right.
the first year we took away the 90%, then it's like all the rules were off, so there were a lot of engineering only projects. That's my memory. I think 90% is too high to make an application. I think no skin in the game is too low, and I think 30% is about right. The way it is.
So it looks like from what I'm seeing, everybody's in favor of leaving it at 30%. No change there.
Okay,
Take a week off, yes.
perfect. That saves me some. So what we'll do then is, when we get ready for the next time we meet, we will look for a final approval. So you'll see that again. We've highlighted some of those. If I review it and see anything else, those little tiny changes, but I think that covers some of the, we haven't heard from anyone else raise any items. So we'll take that as a good thing. And we went through a big change last time. This allows us this to play out for a little bit. So, but again, that next meeting, we will be looking for a final approval that'll kind of set those guidelines for this next year's round of the COG process. So.
Okay, next, we've got a discussion on the county approved sales tax. I sent out an email a few weeks back, most of you know, HB 168.
162.
162. 168 was one using calls. HB 162. As far as I know of right now, I don't believe it's left committee at all. I think it's still sitting there. But in general, I think you've all seen the email I sent out. It's basically tying the hands of what it can be used for. And it would go into effect in May. But that's really all I know about it. I was hoping to have some more information by now. Maybe you or Jeff have anything more?
Well, when we talked again, I looked up online and it appears to still just be in that process, but it's still very, very early stages We could track it online.
And the thing is, we don't know, as I indicated, as I alluded to in my email, we don't know what the county will have to do to respond to that. I don't know, maybe Executive Zook does.
Yeah, I could tell you, I spoke with the sponsor actually, maybe about a week ago.
Okay.
And, I let him know I appreciate his bill and I actually agree with it. I did ask him if he would change the implementation date. Because that's, if he does that, the county loses $6 million. There's just no way to fix that by the end of the year. So he did agree to change the implementation date to January. Other than that, I haven't heard any other changes or heard any movement one way or the other on it. And if it does pass, then most likely the county council would have to increase property taxes to make up for that. Because they're just, the way it's written, it would be very limited. Basically, for public safety, you could use it to build a jail, which is why the bill was written in the first place that way, because Iron County, Cedar City, they had to build a new jail and they wanted to be able to use this revenue. But there are, I got a list of how many counties have implemented it. And I think Utah County had implemented it several years back. And then I can't remember exactly, but it's about half a dozen other counties implemented it in the past year. So
What are they using it for specifically? Is it more infrastructure related items?
I'm not sure, but
If it was done before last year, it would be.
yeah, if it was done before last year, it had to only be for transportation. But considering that all of the rest of those implemented it in the past year, I'm guessing they're using it for public safety as well. But I don't know. I haven't gotten that information. I just got a list from the tax commission. I asked who had implemented it. So there are potentially half a dozen other counties that are going to be lobbying to maybe keep it as is. I did hear some mention of the possibility that there might be a grandfathering provision for people who had already implemented it. Not sure if there's any truth to that. I heard that from a Box Elder County commissioner. Box Elder County is one of the counties that implemented it as well. So I think this is something that can merit further discussion. And I'll just say my position on it is not necessarily the same as county council's position on it. And my position is, as I mentioned in the county council meeting when they voted on this, we as a COG had been talking about this for some time and preparing a strategy to get this implemented so we could use it for transportation needs. And that was something I supported and was looking forward to happening. And this change by the county council using it for other needs was contrary to what we had hoped it would be used for, which was transportation infrastructure. And just from a philosophical standpoint, I think it's better to use property taxes for operational costs, and it's better to use sales taxes for capital costs, because property taxes are much more stable and operational costs are every year costs. And capital projects are one-time costs, and sales taxes are more volatile. Sales taxes go up and down with the economy, and to base your annual operating costs on something that's volatile as sales tax is not really the best way to do it. So from a philosophical standpoint, I think it would be better for the county to change. Of course, I don't get a say or a vote on that. It's a vote of the county council, and they're going to have to figure this out. But if this bill passes with the current language, then the county would have to change and find some other revenue for what they've been using this for, and then this money would then be available. So one of the things I've said is that perhaps this is the best case scenario the way it's played out, because when we were discussing the strategy for maybe convincing the county council to implement this, I doubted whether or not we'd be successful in convincing them to impose the tax. But it's imposed now, so once it's in place, I don't see it being retracted. So
Yeah, I think it's key on that. it's in place now, and yes, they did say 25% to transportation, but it's not to call, it's to transportation. I think we all need to understand that as COG members. They did not specify COG in any shape or form. It went to transportation, and my concern with what Executive Zook is saying is, yeah, they might have to redo this. And we need to keep in contact with them and try to work with them. Because even if they have to go back and redo this, they could still put it just to transportation, and we don't get it.
Yeah.
And I hope that's not the case.
Yeah, my recommendation would be, if this bill does not pass and things stay status quo, my recommendation would be that this group continue to advocate for transitioning away from using these funds for county operational uses and transitioning them back toward transportation use, including not just county transportation, but perhaps allocating that money to the COG to be distributed according to the usual process. And that was a proposal that was made. That was a suggestion I made. Actually, I think the idea originally came from Jeff. He had a suggestion of doing a tiered, graduated weaning of the county off of those funds over maybe a couple of years. So that actually, I think, got a little bit of leverage.
It did get leverage.
With them imposing it, because originally it was 100% public safety. That was their
Yeah.
original vote. And they did back off of that a little bit and changed it to the 75-25, although that 25 wasn't going anywhere other than the county. I feel like that was a victory. That was progress. So I would say if the legislation doesn't pass, we should continue with that route and work on transitioning the county away from using those funds and bringing those dollars back to the COG for regional transportation projects. That's my goal.
Yeah, and the best way we can do that, each of us as mayors, is to make sure we're talking to our representatives and make sure they don't forget it. My biggest fear is it's gone the way it's gone right now, and if this doesn't pass the bill, then it'll just be forgotten down the road as things change, as council members change and stuff like that, and we'll never get any of it back our way, and we need it. I think, as I present to the county, a lot of them see that it was just a matter of trying to fix the problems they had, was it more of a priority. They were voting out of emotion instead of logic, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think you're right. I will say you're correct, but the problem is not that they don't recognize we have a lot of transportation.
Yes.
They get that. I think they totally understand that. The problem was they needed to balance their budget, and that was the easiest way to do it. Property tax, you all know what public truth and taxation hearings are like, and no one enjoys those. This didn't require that process. It was much easier.
But I
Just Mayor Alder.
I think the point that we have to make is when they have that funding, whatever they decide that they can put toward transportation, we have a system in place where we collect the money and we can do significant projects. And if that money stays in the county, it goes to chip and seal and whatever else, they're improving they're maintaining the roads. But what we're offering is, here's a chance for us to pool all that money and use it in a significant way. And if we don't have a chance to get that, then it just gets cleared away and we're not able to put it to something substantive.
And so when the council approved and enacted the tax, they allocated the 25%, but I think they, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they sort of said, you know, we'll figure out exactly where that goes later. And so, and Chairman Erickson seemed to be open. I mean, he kind of suggested the COG staff could be involved in that process. I don't know what that means, but hopefully with the county, as you dig into that, I mean, that might be a way where we could have some sort of COG involvement in that process. I mean, honestly, from my perspective, I would hope that we could use that 25% for capacity and operational improving projects. And honestly, I don't know that it matters so much that it's in unincorporated county versus the cities, because sometimes the county plays a pretty critical role for roads that are in between cities. Like the 12th East Road, there's a lot of those roads where it's dumped on Matt to figure that out, and his budget is really tough to do that. So I think we could say that 25%, whether, goes to the COG or at the bare minimum, it needs to go to
Yeah, and I think that's the
funding
law.
to capacity.
I went back and I read the statute again, and I believe that's what the statute says. When they changed the statute and they said you could use it for salaries or operational expenses, that was only in relation to public safety. So the transportation side of it is I believe the language is the same as it's always been from when that sales tax was first adopted by the legislature, which is that it has to be used for capacity projects.
So I think our COG one is in the urban area, but I don't think that, I'm not aware that
Yeah,
one.
we should review it
Yeah.
together and make
I
sure.
mean, it points to an eligible section for transportation, but there it lists, it lists out basically everything, maintenance, and so. You might be right, I've not seen that, but I think that's what we ought to advocate for, is that it's a new level of spending, and then it goes to operational capacity, that it doesn't just get sucked into kind of normal, not, certainly taking care of what we have has got to be a priority, but boy, with these bigger projects, you need a good chunk of change and it's not realistic to have cities save up for 15 years to try to do a big capital project. So just like what the COG's been able to kind of do is interject money into that.
Well, I think that scenario you're talking about is the worst case scenario. I think everything else would be better than that, but at least we should get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I
Questions?
make a couple comments, Chairman?
Would you identify yourself?
Yeah, I'm Wes Bingham. I'm the finance director for Cache County. So of the counties that implemented the tax, Utah County is the only one that implemented it prior to it being opened up for public safety. So the other counties are Rich County, Sevier, Cache, Box Elder, Juat, Wasatch, Daggett, and Iron. And the counties that have implemented that tax. I think just keeping open communication between the county and the COG board is really important. I don't necessarily see this as an issue of whether it's used for transportation or public safety, as much as just appropriate, funding sources. I do agree with, what David Zook said there, that property tax should generally be used for operational type items. I agree with that in principle. I do think many of the communities, the part that we're not necessarily talking about, it's not necessarily COG's responsibility to address, but, part in my mind is just having equity among the different cities within our county, specific to public safety. I'm just seeing significant disparities in, for example, Smithfield City. They pay $2 million for public safety, and Hiram's paying $300,000, and it's being provided for by the sheriff. So in my mind, if you can deal with the equity among the cities as a whole, I'm really satisfied.
I get what you're saying, but that's, like you said, that's outside my purview.
Sure.
It totally outside my purview. So we look at the roads. We look at the roads and say, okay, we had a project last year, $7 million, our entire COG allocation. We can't fund it. So that funding that we were trying for was supposed to come to us so we can do exactly that and increase the public safety on these roads. So I get what you're saying, But that's really outside of our purview totally.
And
Yeah,
that,
increase the
that might
cost.
mean too, that the county, you know, if it's a county-specific transportation project, maybe the county needs to be the one increasing property tax to pay for it.
That's what I have to do on my budgets for myself, so. Okay, thank you. Mayor Jacobs.
So I had a county council member reach out to me and ask how we can get back on track between the county council and COG. And maybe you all have had similar conversations. This council member said, should they go, like, get a hold of individual mayors? Should we invite some sort of workshop between the COG and the county council in this setting? I tend to think that an honest conversation in a workshop setting is a lot more efficient than trying to go build relationships with people one time, as long as we can have a constructive and productive conversation.
I have offered that out. And I have also offered up to have a member of the county council be a liaison to this group.
They,
So that we
and
get.
they did select one of their members to be a liaison.
Who that is.
Who is
I
it?
think it was Barbara.
Or is it keeping Gary?
I can't remember.
You're absolutely right. I think that's, you're making a good point.
Yeah.
And we are moving that direction to try to say, let's talk.
Okay.
Let's do what we need to
Sandy
do.
said she was gonna try to come, and I forwarded the invitation to her to come to both the CFO and. But she.
They each all receive an invitation.
Yeah, Sandy Goodlander is the new chair and Catherine Hughes is the
So,
vice chair.
We've not historically, I mean, even, they're always invited. but we haven't historically sent invitations out, except for the ones that requested it, which have been Sandy Goodlander and Catherine Hughes.
Well, Mayor Jacobs is right. The first thing we need to do is make sure that the communication avenues are all open. So that we can all work on this together and resolve it. That's the best solution.
So I thought we might even include an agenda item on a future COG meeting to try to look each other in the eye and talk about some
They
stuff.
need to come to a couple of meetings just so they see the format and see who's here and the participation, and then come and let's talk.
Yeah,
Doesn't hurt
I
to
mean,
ask.
I'll reach out to the one that's been assigned and ask them if they'd like to then give us a briefing as well as.
yeah, and I'll share a
Okay,
name
let
with
me,
you. I'll share a name with you that reached out to me if you want, Mayor, and see if we follow up with that council member.
Ryan, are you trying to ask a question or?
I'll just get feedback.
I think it was just feedback.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I will give you, okay. So, the important thing to take from this conversation here, rather than to, beleaguer it, is to reach out, keep talking to your representatives and let them know that we are willing to work with them in whatever way we can to start seeing more funding coming our way that we need to meet them. Because the COG right now, as we get funded, all the allocations and the cost of these projects, it's gonna be impossible for us to fund a lot of these projects in their entirety. And to have somebody come back piecemeal each time, all it does is increase the cost of the project over time.
David, can I ask, you said that the sponsor agreed to move the implementation date
Yes,
and.
the January.
So
In
does
next
that,
January.
so would that, help me understand what that would mean? Would that mean hold Cache County harmless and all the other ones if we did that?
It would, no, all that would do would be if it passed and the counties no longer had the ability to use those funds for public safety operations.
Oh, they'd have a
That
year
would-
to fix it.
It would start next January, so
That's-
because everybody's already adopted their budget and counties are on a calendar year budget. So everyone's already passed on their truth and taxation. They cannot change their property tax until next January. So that would give those counties until they would give them this fall to do their truth and taxation hearing, set their tax rate. And then next January, they could replace that sales tax with property tax.
Okay.
Any further discussion? I hope it's been informative for you. what you've heard, what we've been discussing. Anything else from Jesse or Jeff? Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Yeah, let's
Do you want to
say.
stay here?